Welcome into CBS News 24/7. I'm Juliette Goodrich. Here's a look at the four big headlines we're following at 4. New details just released in the Mexican Navy ship that crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge. What NTSB investigators are now saying about the deadly incident. President Trump holds separate calls with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. But could both leaders come to the table and work towards striking a peace deal? Also, a manhunt continues for the inmates who escaped from a New Orleans prison. Why officials believe they may be getting help from family and friends. And millions of Americans brace for another round of severe weather after deadly storms tear through communities.
There ain't no words for it. Like a war zone.
By the grace of God, we survived it. I mean, I don't know how.
Begin with this video. Take a look. It's capturing the shocking moment when a Mexican Navy ship crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge in New York. So the ship was supposed to head out to sea after leaving its pier, but then drifted off course. 2 crew members were killed. CBS News senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve joining us live from New York. The NTSB just wrapped up a news conference. What did we learn, Chris?
Well, the NTSB says they are still waiting to sort of go through the diplomatic protocol channels to actually get on the ship. So they have not been able to get on board this Mexican naval vessel to begin that part of their investigation. But we did learn that it was about a 5-minute window from when the ship started to essentially back out of its parking place with the assistance of a tugboat and when it hit the Brooklyn Bridge. About a minute before that collision, there was a radio call from the tugboat calling on additional tugboats to come and assist. So it gives us some sense that at least a minute before impact, it was clear something had gone wrong. We know that the current was pushing towards the Brooklyn Bridge. New York's mayor and police have said preliminarily they believe there may have been some kind of an engine failure. If the ship's engine had failed, that would leave it at the mercy of the currents, which could explain why it hit the bridge. The NTSB has had their bridge team up on the Brooklyn Bridge today. They described the damage to the bridge as superficial, and they say that a damage assessment that they had called for a couple of months ago actually had been handed into the NTSB within the last few days and was still being reviewed, but had shown that this bridge could withstand an impact from a sizable vessel. In this case, it was the masts of this ship that hit the vessel. We understand about 100 occupants on board, 100 of the 277 have gone back to Mexico. At least 2 naval cadets remain in the hospital. And of course, we have those 2 fatalities from this accident.
All right, Chris Van Cleve. Chris, thank you. Let's go to the White House now, where President Trump says Russia and Ukraine will, quote, immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end to the war. That announcement coming after a high-stakes phone call between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin lasting 2 hours. So let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman with the latest. So what came out of this phone call between the 2 leaders?
Hey there, Jules. Good to be with you on this Monday afternoon. Well, President Trump said in a social media post earlier today that those ceasefire negotiations, as you mentioned, will start immediately between Russia and Ukraine. We also know from this social media post that the president put out there earlier in the day that the tone and spirit of the conversation he describes was excellent. That call with Russian President Vladimir Putin lasting 2 hours. And just a moment ago, we just left the Rose Garden, actually, where the president signed the Take It Down Act, and he had this to say to reporters. Take a listen.
Buddy, we just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. 5,000 young people every single week are being killed. So hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place. So.
And as the president mentioned there, he had separate phone calls with European leaders, and he also informed President Zelensky of Ukraine about the outcome of his phone call with President Putin. Also mentioned, we didn't have this on cam there, but the president was asked if he believed that President Putin wants peace. He said, "I do," when members of the media were shouting questions at him as he and the First Lady exited the Rose Garden to the Oval Office. He was also asked if he trusts Putin. He says he does. He says, "I do." And then he was asked again another question as to whether or not Pope Leo could be helpful in negotiating peace between Russia and Ukraine, and the president said, again, "I do." Those questions coming off cam on the sidelines of that Rose Garden event here at the White House that just wrapped up moments ago, Jules.
Yeah, those conversations are always interesting. So Putin says that Russia and Ukraine will need to find compromises, but that Russia's position is pretty clear. So what will it take for both sides to secure a peace deal?
Yeah, well, for the Americans, they've telegraphed their frustration. The White House has been saying that time and time again for several weeks now. We've seen similar statements come from Secretary of State Marco Rubio this morning from the Vice President as he traveled back from Rome after attending Mass at the Vatican. And we've seen this come from President Trump himself, that the White House, the Trump administration, is growing frustrated with the limited progress between these talks between Russia and Ukraine. And there's an open question as to whether or not President Putin is serious about a peace deal. And that certainly is something that we're trying to find out here. I'll note that the Secretary of State and the President himself have said that there perhaps won't be any deal or any progress, any strong progress made until he, meaning President Trump, and President Putin are in the same room. And the White House press secretary indicated that the president is open to that happening, to there being some type of summit between President Putin and President Trump. It's unclear when and where and how that would happen. But we do, of course, know, as the president indicated, that Pope Leo, the Vatican, they have indicated that they're willing to host these peace negotiations, potentially in-person peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine there at the Vatican. So we'll have to wait and see in terms of what comes of these further conversations as both sides work out what they want in a ceasefire deal. But at least from the stance of the White House, they believe a more significant development won't come until those face-to-face meetings take place. Jules?
All right. Willie James Inman. Willie, thank you. All right, let's go to Wall Street now, where investors react to the U.S. losing its last perfect credit rating over concerns about the government's ability to pay back its debt. So the Dow managed to lock in some gains today. And here's our interactive stock market heat map. This is brought to you by FinViz. It shows the top 500 stocks. So as you can see, some big tech names, they took a little bit of a hit. Moodys, a global credit rating agency that measures financial stability and credit reliability, lowered the U.S. credit rating, citing rising federal debt. It is the last major rating agency to downgrade the U.S. from a perfect credit score. So in an interview with the NBC News Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he downplayed the move. He called Moodys a, quote, lagging indicator.
I think that Moody's is a lagging indicator. I think that's what everyone thinks of credit agencies. Larry Summers and I don't agree on everything, but he said that when they downgraded the U.S. in 2011. So it's a lagging indicator. And just like Sean Duffy said with our air traffic control system, we didn't get here in the past 100 days. It's the Biden administration and the spending that we have seen over the past 4 years. You know, we inherited 6.7% deficit to GDP, the highest when we weren't in a recession, not in a war, and we are determined to bring the spending down and grow the economy.
Meantime, new data shows how Americans feel about the economy. According to a study by Bankrate, 54% of consumers plan to spend less on travel, dining, and live entertainment compared to last year. And while major retailers warn tariffs will force price hikes, President Trump tells companies to absorb the costs. Walmart said higher tariffs will bring higher prices due to the company's narrow retail margins. But then Trump hit back on Truth Social, writing in part, quote, Walmart should stop trying to blame tariffs as the reason for raising prices, adding between Walmart and China, they should, as is said, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. A car bomb explodes outside a California fertility clinic. Authorities calling the attack an act of terrorism. What we now know about the suspect next. You're watching CBS News 24/7.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is dramatic video of a tornado sweeping through the Colorado town of Bennett, just east of Denver. The twister damaged several homes. So let's go to coverage from CBS News Colorado right now.
Reporter Ashley Portillo reporting live in the town of Bennett this morning, where homeowners, property owners are picking up the pieces of what is now left behind after storms and tornadoes ripped through the area on Sunday afternoon. Want to give you a live look at some of those damages. You can see behind me, too, this home completely destroyed. The homeowners did tell me also a large barn in the back of their home destroyed, cars damaged out here, windows blown out from the home. It all happened in just a matter of minutes. They said they actually hid in their bedroom as those storms rolled by. Thankfully, no injuries have been reported, but Adams County is saying 17 structures were damaged, including 6 homes in total. Reporting live in Bennett, Ashley Portillo covering Colorado First.
Oh my God! We're in a tornado! We're literally in a fucking tornado, dude. Look at the trees, dude. Oh, dude, it just crushed the crane truck.
Imagine that. The intense moments for construction workers in St. Louis, Missouri. The crews started recording video of them being caught in a twister over the weekend. The tornado was seen tearing down trees and whipping large trees and debris all around them. Severe weather also slamming parts of Texas and Kentucky. The devastating storms killing at least 28 people, including 19 in Kentucky. And more trouble could be on tap today for tens of millions of Americans. CBS News' Nicole Valdez has more from hard-hit London, Kentucky.
In London, Kentucky, a city of just 8,000 residents, dozens of houses lie in pieces as far as the eye can see.
This is what's left of your home.
Yeah. Lonnie Nance was lying in his bed with his wife when his daughters ran into the room with a frantic warning. A tornado less than a minute away.
We got down and we heard it coming, and then the house started trembling.
His family huddled in this hallway, his daughter Rita Queen among them.
The only 4 walls standing were the 4 walls that we were in between.
The tornado that hit here was part of a massive storm system that tore through communities in Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, and Missouri, leaving more than 24 people dead. In Missouri, 5 were killed after an EF3 tornado with wind speeds around 150 miles per hour ravaged the St. Louis metro area, injuring dozens and damaging some 5,000 structures. Tens of thousands lost power. Back in Kentucky, Rita Queen can hardly believe her childhood home is gone.
Initially coming back and you see this, where you grew up, it's hard. This was my favorite place.
And local officials expect FEMA on the ground in Laurel County today. The governor of Kentucky says there are still 10 people in the hospital, 3 of them in critical condition. Nicole Valdez, CBS News, London, Kentucky.
All right, let's bring in meteorologist Zoe Mintz to talk about the damage so far, and it's far from over, so there's more warnings on the way.
Yes, tonight is going to be that big tornado threat, but even tomorrow that threat continues, quieting down later this week. But again, we still have 24 to 36 hours left of severe weather. I want to break it down by the numbers, though, show you how much we've already seen over just the past 5 days. Over 2,700 storm reports. That includes over 100 tornado reports and over 1,500 damaging wind reports. The damaging wind span basically the entire country, but it's the tornadoes that were from Texas all the way up to Colorado, like we showed you videos, and including Nebraska. And this afternoon and evening, there is more tornadic threat. The areas that you see in hatched marks, that is that big chance for large EF2 or higher tornadoes within a 25-mile radius of anywhere in that hatched area. So do keep that in mind. If you live in these areas, if you have friends and family in these areas, there is going to be that high tornadic threat. We actually are currently looking at a tornado warning in Oklahoma. There was a tornado warning up in Nebraska. Right now it has subsided, but that line of very strong to potentially tornadic thunderstorms is heading towards Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska right now. Those storms are again going to continue into our overnight hours and continue to bring us the potential for very strong thunderstorms. Let's take us down to the ground right now and show you not only the severe thunderstorms that you see in orange, that tornado warning in red, but also widespread river levels that are extremely high. There's also the potential, especially over the Ozarks, for high chances of flash flooding. So keep that in mind. That's a level 3 out of 4 for flash flooding. And that chance for severe weather, again, along this line of thunderstorms that's going to continue overnight tonight from Texas all the way up to Nebraska and including parts of Illinois as well. That's where that highest risk for severe thunderstorms is. That bullseye in red, that's a level 4 out of 5. Again, breaking down the timing, taking you a little bit farther into the future behind me, you can see again those lines of severe thunderstorms from Texas all the way up through Missouri and including Illinois. It's going to head over to Chicago overnight tonight. So overnight tornadic activity is possible. Keep those alerts on loud. You are likely going to hear something. And if you don't see it today, you'll likely see it tomorrow across the Mississippi Valley, where there already was those deadly tornadoes on Friday. More potential for strong tornadoes into tomorrow. Back to you.
All right, Zoe, thank you. CBS News obtaining new video of the moments leading up to Makmoud Khalils' arrest. This video shared by the New York Civil Liberties Union shows it is the Columbia University graduate and Palestinian activist on the phone and talking to immigration officers. He was detained back in March. Khalil was a vocal member of last year's campus protests over the war in Gaza. And then jumping the map to Ohio, 2 people and a 5-year-old girl killed after being hit by a train. Authorities say the family was on a fishing trip along the Sandusky River and were on the railroad bridge when they were hit last night. A 1-year-old girl was rescued and taken to the hospital. Crews recovered the body of the 5-year-old near the bridge earlier today. Officials say the 2 adults killed were a mother and her adult daughter. A pregnant woman in Georgia has been kept on life support for months after being declared brain dead. Doctors say that under Georgia's 6-week abortion cutoff, they had no choice but to keep her alive until her baby can be delivered. CBS News correspondent Janet Shamlian has the latest.
This is a heartbreaking story out of here in the Atlanta area. Adriana Smith was 9 weeks pregnant when she was declared legally brain dead in mid-February after doctors discovered multiple blood clots on her brain. Her family says she's been kept on life support since that time. They say the hospital told them they can't take her off of life support until the fetus is delivered. And the family says it has had no ability to make decisions or weigh in on this matter. Now, we did talk to the Attorney General's office. They issued a statement saying actually the heartbeat bill does not prevent the woman being taken off life support at this time because it would not be considered an abortion. But the hospital that's caring for her, the Emory Hospital System, says that it is relying on its medical expertise, the law, and its own physicians to make these decisions. It puts the family in a conundrum at this point. This woman, Adriana Smith, has another child who's been to the hospital multiple times and who, according to the family, believes that his mother is just sleeping. The family also believes that the child that Adriana is carrying may have multiple birth defects because of the mother's situation with the blood clots. It's a legal and an ethical gray area, and right now it is leaving this family in limbo because of this Georgia law. Back to you.
Couple says they were embarrassed and offended after they were ordered to leave a high-end Boston hotel. It all started when a security guard confronted the couple in the restroom and allegedly asked them to prove their gender. As CBS News Boston's Brandon Truitt reports, the incident comes as Massachusetts hate crimes hit a 20-year high.
It's just humiliating overall. Like I said, I didn't have my shorts tied even, and then just in front of everyone.
Ansley Baker is still emotional. Ansley and her girlfriend Liz Victor were in a restroom at the Liberty Hotel in Boston when they say a male security guard came in and started banging on the stalls.
I looked down and I saw her shoes, and that's when I was like, wait, what is going on?
One of the security guards was there telling me to get out of the bathroom, that I was a man in the women's bathroom. I said, I'm a woman.
Ansley was born a woman, is a woman, and identifies as one, but says as she was escorted out of the restroom, comments were hurled at her from other women waiting in line.
Someone said, get him out of here, referring to me. He's a creep, also referring to me.
From there, the couple says the security guard asked for their IDs to check their gender. After presenting them, they say things grew heated before ultimately being told to leave. For its part, the Liberty Hotel says their security went in after several women alerted security of 2 adults sharing a bathroom stall, and that the couple was kicked out after one put their hands on our security team. The women vehemently deny it.
If that's what he thought the issue was once he opened the stall door, obviously there's only one person in there, so should have been kind of case closed.
Being harassed in public restrooms is a tale as old as time.
LGBTQ advocates like Nina Salvaggio say this couple's story is the result of ramped up rhetoric, with Massachusetts hate crimes hitting a 20-year high.
I do think the surge in national anti-trans rhetoric is contributing to an increased policing of women's bodies and their expressions of gender.
We're not the only ones that face this kind of thing, and just hope that it doesn't happen again.
By Tuesday morning, the hotel said they had finished their investigation and suspended that security guard. The couple says they got a call from the hotel manager, but they want a public retraction of that original statement that suggested the 2 women were in the same stall. I'm Brandon Truitt, CBS News, Boston.
Former President Joe Biden reveals he's fighting an aggressive form of prostate cancer. What we know about his treatment and reaction from both sides of the aisle. Stay with us. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Now, where the second week of testimony begins in the Sean Diddy Combs sex trafficking trial. Today in court, the jury hears from witnesses who say they saw Combs abuse his ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman has been inside the courtroom listening to testimony and has an update for us.
We heard from 3 more witnesses today who testified about the pattern of abuse, both of Sean Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, and of his employees. There was a singer, Dawn Richard, who was signed to Bad Boy Records and who was in a group with Sean Combs. She also talked about how she was told not to talk about the things she witnessed when she was around him. She spent a lot of time around him and Cassie Ventura and told stories of the abuse she witnessed. She said that she was told, "It gets dark and lonely if you don't listen, if you tell stories about what you see around Sean Combs." A former personal assistant of Combs also said the same thing, that he was told on multiple occasions to stay in his lane. This is someone who was by Combs' side all the time. He also talked about the long, grueling hours that he worked under Combs, up to 20 hours a day. This former assistant, David James, broke down crying almost immediately when he took the stand. We also heard from Carrie Morgan. She was the best friend of Ventura for 17 years. The two no longer speak after an incident where Sean Combs hit Morgan with a hanger. She was injured at the time. She ended up signing an NDA that Cassie Ventura brought to her, asking her never to speak about the incident. She received $30,000, and the two never spoke again. Morgan also talked about 2 harrowing incidents of abuse that she witnessed. One was in Jamaica, where she saw Combs drag Ventura down a hallway about 50 feet, she said. The 2 ended up fleeing, hiding in the woods for what she said felt like hours. She testified that it was all because Combs said Ventura spent too long in the bathroom. Back to you.
The Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to strip legal protections from about 350,000 Venezuelans. The protections allowed Venezuelans already living in the U.S. to remain and work legally because their native country was deemed unsafe. Without the protections, the Venezuelans could potentially face deportation. Messages of support are pouring in for former President Joe Biden after he was diagnosed with cancer. His office says it is an aggressive form of prostate cancer that spread to the bone. Biden spoke about the diagnosis in a Twitter post, writing, "Cancer touches us all," and thanking everyone for lifting him and the First Lady up with love and support. CBS News White House reporter Aaron Navarro joining us live now from Wilmington, Delaware, Biden's home of more than 70 years. So people are reacting to this news about the diagnosis. What can you tell us?
Jules, good afternoon. I'm about maybe a bit more than a mile in Wilmington, where sources have told CBS News that that is where he is staying. We still don't know necessarily what treatment he and his family are electing to do. But the support from both sides of the aisle have been coming in from his former running mates, former President Barack Obama, as well as Vice President Kamala Harris, who have shared their prayers, thoughts with President Biden. President Obama noted how President Biden led an initiative known as the Cancer Moonshot to help increase federal funding for research and development in curing cancer. We also heard from President Donald Trump, who posted on Truth Social earlier today, noting his support, his thoughts are with the former president as well. And just from talking to a handful of people here in Wilmington, as you mentioned, President Biden's home, I sense the acknowledgement that this is the 82-year-old president. They weren't necessarily surprised given his age, but certainly are sharing their thoughts and prayers with him.
All right, Aaron Navarro. Aaron, thank you. President Donald Trump signing the Take It Down Act with First Lady Melania Trump at his side. The law cracks down on explicit images, deep fakes, and pornography created using artificial intelligence without a person's consent. It sets stricter penalties for sharing that illegal content online, and it requires websites to remove images within 48 hours of receiving a request from a victim.
Artificial intelligence and social media are the digital candy for the next generation. Sweet, addictive, and engineered to have an impact on the cognitive development of our children. But unlike sugar, these new technologies can be weaponized, shape beliefs, and sadly affect emotions and even be deadly.
The White House says First Lady Melania Trump was instrumental in getting the measure through Congress. The big, beautiful bill advanced from the House Budget Committee on Friday. The bill was unable to advance after several conservatives said spending cuts didn't go far enough. But after some rare weekend negotiations, the committee advanced it. The bill extends President Trump's 2017 tax cuts, eliminates taxes on tips and overtime pay. It also increases spending for defense and immigration enforcement, while proposing cuts to Medicaid, food stamps, and clean energy subsidies. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defended the cuts this morning.
The president wants to preserve and protect Medicaid for Americans who this program was intended for, the most vulnerable in our society, pregnant women, low-income families, seniors, those who truly need these benefits. And it should be going to people who physically cannot work. We want to see able-bodied Americans at least working 20 hours per week, whether that's part-time or full-time, whether that's even looking for work or volunteering for 20 hours a week if they are receiving Medicaid. These are common sense provisions.
CBS News congressional reporter Torian Small has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Yeah, so quite a few of the conservatives also happen to be part of the House Freedom Caucus. These are those fiscal conservative hawks that became hardliners because of the excess spending within the Republican Party. That was the biggest gripe they had with this bill, and they were looking for concessions in the way of more deeper spending cuts. Now, we saw Representative Chip Roy, who was kind of the mouthpiece for these grievances, come out yesterday and say that he ultimately agreed to vote present instead of no like he did the first time, because he believed in the good faith of the Republican Party that they will continue these negotiations. We don't necessarily have the modifications as was stated by the chair of the House Budget Committee and House Speaker Mike Johnson that Republicans like Roy was looking for, but Roy believes that throughout the next couple of days, he believes that they can get to a place where he would feel confident in voting for this bill once it reaches the House floor.
Could autonomous weapons be the future of warfare? The tech billionaire who wants to change the way the U.S. military fights back. Next, you are watching CBS News 24/7. '23andMe has a new buyer. The genetic testing company declared bankruptcy in March. Now a New York-based drug maker called Regeneron Pharmaceutical has agreed to buy the company for $256 million. Regeneron vowed to abide by 23andMe's privacy policies and protect customer data. Right now, 23andMe stores data for about 15 million customers, including their DNA. More and more men are being diagnosed with more advanced prostate cancer, and that is according to the American Cancer Society. CBS News' Michael George tells us even for patients, that is, with aggressive disease, treatment options are still available.
The office of former President Joe Biden says his prostate cancer was graded with a Gleason score of 9 out of 10, representing a more aggressive form of the disease. And the cancer is spread to the bone. Prostate cancer surgeon Dr. Vipul Patel is not involved in Biden's care.
When a cancer spreads to the bones, it's defined as being metastatic disease. We don't know how effective that is in terms of how many bone lesions he has, so we don't know the extent of that. But what we do know is that that makes it a very aggressive form of cancer.
More than 313,000 new cases of prostate cancer will be diagnosed in the U.S. this year, and more than 35,000 men will die, according to the American Cancer Society. While aggressive, Biden's cancer appears to be hormone sensitive. Some good news, according to Dr. Celine Gounder, CBS News medical contributor and editor-at-large for public health at KFF.
Testosterone fuels the growth of the prostate cancer. So if you can block the testosterone, you're blocking the growth, and that is a very good prognostic indicator.
Dr. Patel says the prognosis for prostate cancer today is much better, even for patients with advanced disease.
Many of the medical therapies are quite effective these days and give patients longevity, even at 82 with high-risk prostate cancer. Depends how sensitive this cancer is genetically to the treatment they give him. But the nice thing is we do have many different types of medical therapy we can use today.
The president and his family are said to be reviewing treatment options with his physicians. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Are autonomous weapons using artificial intelligence the future of warfare? 60 Minutes correspondent Sharon Alfonsi spoke to one tech billionaire who's set on changing the way the Pentagon buys and uses weapons.
Palmer Luckey isn't your typical defense industry executive. His daily uniform, flip-flops and a Hawaiian shirt, is more suited for Margaritaville than the military. But the 32-year-old billionaire is the founder of Anduril, whose line of American-made autonomous weapons looks like it came straight out of a sci-fi movie, and whose slick marketing videos wouldn't be out of place in one. There's the Roadrunner, a twin turbo jet-powered drone interceptor that can take off, identify, and strike. If it doesn't find a target, it can land and try again. Anduril also makes headsets, which allow soldiers to see 360 degrees in combat. And there's this. It's an electromagnetic warfare system that can be programmed to jam enemy systems, knocking out drone swarms. It's not some futuristic fantasy. Anduril systems are already being used by the U.S. military and in the war in Ukraine.
We shouldn't be sending our people to stand in other countries, putting our men and women, our sons and daughters at risk for the sovereignty of other nations.
So you'd rather have an American-made product in their hands than our soldiers over there?
Absolutely, every time. And I think that that's one of the reasons that autonomy is so powerful. Right now, there's so many weapon systems that require manning. You know, if I can have one guy commanding and controlling 100 aircraft, that's a lot easier than having to have a pilot in every single one, and it puts a lot fewer American lives at risk.
To the Middle East now. Israel is allowing humanitarian aid into Gaza after a month-long blockade. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is allowing a basic amount of aid after pressure from allies on the growing humanitarian crisis. The blockade was aimed at pressuring Hamas to agree to a ceasefire, but aid groups say it was pushing the region toward famine. The decision comes as Israel launches a new ground operation in Gaza. Israeli strikes killed at least 130 Palestinians overnight. This comes as indirect talks between Israel and Hamas continue in Qatar. Sources on both sides say there has been no progress in reaching an agreement on the return of remaining hostages or a ceasefire. And we are hearing from the parents of Idan Alexander, the last living U.S. citizen to be released by Hamas. after more than 19 months as a hostage. They told CBS News foreign correspondent Deborah Pata about the danger Adan faced and the moment they learned he would be free.
After 584 days, American hostage Adan Alexander was finally freed from Hamas captivity. His parents, Adi and Yael, told us how it came about.
So we were all at home in Jersey after the Mother's Day brunch that we had.
While I was blowing out some leaves, I missed 8 phone calls from Steve Witkoff.
When he finally got through, what did he say?
And he told us in 10 minutes from now, Hamas will be announcing about your son's release tomorrow.
The happiest Mother's Day ever.
At last, the reunion they'd been dreaming of for so long.
I came in full power. We almost fell because he was weak and I'm screaming and I'm like, holding him. It was wow.
And how's he doing?
He's still weak.
Has he been able to talk about his captivity at all?
Yeah, he talks a lot about it, but no rush. We're not pushing, and he went through a lot of stuff.
During his captivity, he saw his parents on the news pleading for his release.
We love you, our sweet, sweet boy.
I think the fact that he saw us running and fighting and knocking on every door kept him hopeful.
A lot of the hostages were kept in tunnels for the entire time. Didn't often see daylight, some never.
Adan, he told me, oh my God, Mom, I'm so pale. I look like a vampire because he didn't saw sunlight.
Israel has stepped up its war in Gaza with a death toll of over 500 in just 1 week. Families of hostages have taken to the streets saying the renewed offensive puts their loved ones in captivity at risk.
Adan told us, so when they heard the bombing, it was very, very concerning, scary. It was like an earthquake. And at some point, one of the tunnels collapsed.
What do you want the world to know?
The urgency, just the urgency. Our son, he was lucky to get out. Listen, you can't treat agony with more agony. This war needs to end.
There are 58 hostages, living and dead, still in captivity. I'm Deborah Patter in Tel Aviv.
America Decides with Major Garrett is next, with continuing coverage on former President Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis. We leave you with a live look at an Oklahoma neighborhood under a severe weather risk.